We are just 2 weeks away from the kickoff to the Premier League season, and officially now, FPL has launched. Our favourite and our worst game at the same time has officially kicked off. The dust has settled on the launch. There's been some crazy drafts floating about the internet, but now the dust has settled. Today, we are going to give you our official first drafts. We will show you all three of our current teams. We're going to talk strategy, we're going to talk thoughts, and we're going to talk some of the prices. So stay tuned, make sure you subscribe. But without further ado, Jamie, let's see the first team.
Right then, let's start with mine then. I'll be totally honest first. If you do follow our Instagram and TikTok, you will notice this is a difference into my very first draft. However, this is probably my second draft. I haven't made that many changes to it. But yes, let's get into goalkeepers and defenders. So I've gone with Keller and Kinksky. Now, Kinkski's in there because he's 4.0, and Spurs do not know who the number one is going to be for next season with Frank. I'll be looking at the pre-season games, seeing who's actually going to be the keeper. But if it's Kinksky, I'm getting a Spurs goalie for 4 million. So I really like that one. Keller is now moved to Brentford, and I think he'll get a lot of save points because that's what, sort of Brentford will face a lot of shots, and Keller is a good shot stopper. So that's kind of where my thought process is there, and I don't like going much more money than that. Into my sort of defence, Gabriel, I think, is the most attacking centre half possible. Konza, I think, is really good value at 4.5. Colwill, I like Chelsea's games, and I wanted to get into their defence. Tarkowski, Everton have a very good defence, and because of the new rules with the defenders getting or defending sort of ways gets you sort of certain points. Tarkowski would have got 44 extra points last season, so he's just someone I think I have to bring in my team because I think they'd also do better with Deitch not there. It's Moyes, and they did a lot better under him. And then Wan-Bissaka, 4.5, very nice fixture to start off with. Is kind of where my thought process has gone there. West Ham maybe not the best defensive team, but 4.5, you're not exactly splashing the cash and risking it all. Right, with that, Jordan, Reese, any comments? Anyone you dislike? Anyone you do like?
Uh, Tarkovsky, I think people are just jumping on because of that stat, personally. Like, Everton, I don't know, it's a tough one. Everton are good defensively. Is he the best defender in their team? I don't know. And I think it's really difficult to know at this stage how the defensive points are going to play out because you're seeing a lot of drafts with a lot of the players that were at the top of the stats last season, so like Tarkovsky, Caicedo, Anderson. These are previously players that you probably wouldn't have considered. The question is, will he do it again? I don't know. So at 5.5 million, my initial thoughts of that price is kind of factored in the stats from last season, and I don't necessarily see it being identical season. And then I think if you look at Everton's games, to be fair, they're not terrible, but
Yeah,
it's
I'll bring
like,
bring them up.
yeah, I was going to say actually, yeah, if you get them on screen, it's probably easier.
So you got Leeds away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, then it's sort of Villa at home, Liverpool away. First five. Anyway,
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet in any of those games. That's my initial thoughts on Tarkovsky, but I don't know. I think he's a little bit expensive potentially. That's my initial thoughts.
5.5 isn't a cheap price. Yeah. You remember Everton kept 12 clean sheets last year, so that's quite a lot for a team that was actually really struggling at the start. So that's sort of in my thought process, and where you're saying they might not get any clean sheets, I just think they will. I think they struggle in attack more than defence. I think they're not a bad defensive side. But I can understand sort of, yes, he's more in my team because of this new sort of point system, and he seems to one that benefits most if he continues like he was last season.
Yeah, fair. I think
Reese?
West Ham as well. West Ham don't have the greatest run of games as well in terms of Wan-Bissaka. But again, I'm picking holes. I think at 4.5 mil, I think he's a great choice to be honest. Um, Consart as well, probably going to start 4.5. Gabriel needs no introduction. I mean, he was just an absolute baller last year, and I think Arsenal are still going to be a threat from corners. Um, Colwill, I agree with you. I think our fixtures are great. Again, if I'm picking holes, maybe there's a rotation risk. But I think out of all our centre backs, out of the three or four that are in that rotation, I would say the centre backs, he's the most consistent and nailed on. So I think if you're going for a centre back choice, Chelsea wise, I think that probably makes most sense because you have got Tosin, you've got Chalabar, who maybe will be rotated out. But yeah, it's probably a bit too early to say for sure.
Yeah, Reese, what about you? What's your thoughts on my defence and keepers?
I think they're very logical and very sensible. Kelly, I think, is a very interesting choice because it's going to be his first season as a number one. We know that he's capable of doing that from what we've seen when he's played for Liverpool in the Cup. However, he's going to be playing for a Brentford side who are going for a bit of a transition this season. So will he be up to the task remains to be seen, but I don't expect Brentford to be in any sort of relegation trouble anyway. And if anything, like you said, he's going to be saving a lot of shots. I also expect him to win a few man of the matches as well.
Is
Um,
Sorry, just quickly, is Kelleher definitely going to be first choice? Do we know that?
yes,
I'm about 99.
they
I'm
saw,
about
yeah,
90%
Fine.
sure. I won't
yeah.
say
You they
100, but yeah,
And also he
yeah,
wouldn't have gone to Brentford to be number two, would he? Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah, but no player ever goes for that reason. But
no,
it
but
depends on what
they
they've
let
got.
their other goalkeeper go anyway. Brentford to
If
bring.
he drops some stinkers, then yeah, he might get dropped. But if he's, I think we'll know by game week, game week one that he'll
Yeah,
probably be the starting keeper anyway.
yeah. It's a smart and interesting choice, and I think the defense obviously makes sense. We know Gabriel's threat from set pieces, and obviously the clean sheets that he helped secure for Arsenal last season. Konza, I think if he stays fit, you're going to get a player there who's going to play. Um, Carwell the same, I agree, might fall under rotation. Wan-Bissaka in a Graham Potter side will probably flourish. I think he'll be a very steady Eddie for them. And Tarkowski, yeah, I completely get the logic of him. You know, he played 33 games last season. He's susceptible to yellow card, obviously, but I also think that David Moyes, he's also known for having good defense. So I think he's going to fit perfectly for them and win those man of the matches as well. The only issue, obviously, we know with a Moyes team, they're traditionally slow starters. So it's important to not panic. I don't think Everton are going to be in any 4-0s or anything like that defeats, but you know, they're probably going to be a couple of dodgy starts, but I don't think that's going to be down to Tarkowski, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think that's a smart back line where I think a lot of people are getting value for money.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that makes sense. So moving on to my midfield, we've got Salah, Palmer, two big expensive players there. Then I've gone with Gordon, Rogers, and then sort of my 5.5, which I think is one that's a bit different to everyone, is I'm having Rangers here now. One, I'm having him because, well, I want a City player in my team. And to be honest, because of Pep Roulette, really, it's difficult to pick someone who's going to be there week in, week out if you're not spending the sort of Haaland money. So I quite like him, I think, with the defensive contributions, and I think he will pop up with a goal or assist here and there. Salah and Palmer, I don't think we need to talk about much, to be honest. Salah's the best FPL player of all time. I don't think he will have as good of a season as he did last season, but that doesn't mean he's not going to have a very good season either, and probably still going to be top of the FPL. Palmer, he didn't do too great, I don't think, towards sort of FPL points wise towards the end of the season. But I think Chelsea's fixtures are so nice, like I mentioned with Colwill, it's difficult to not have him in, especially when he'll have penalties as well, things like that. Gordon, I think, needs to then step up this year with Isak rumoured to be leaving and at least probably going to be out of the squad for at least the first few weeks if he's not sold by then. I don't see Eddie Howe starting Isak in that sort of role with his sort of going, I kind of want to leave. So I think Gordon's the one who's going to have to step up. And Rodgers was just very good for Villa last year. Up in price is the only concern, but he started, I think, 30. Well, I can have a check. I think it was 33, something like that. History, or 37, so even more than that. He started last season. So it's just so worth it, I think, for someone who's guaranteed to start and is very good attacking. What do you guys make of my midfield? I don't think we need to really touch on Salah and Palmer, I'll be honest.
No, of course not. They're the two standout players from last season and obviously from what we've seen in pre-season with Palmer. Rodgers is completely logical. If you're going to go for anyone in Aston Villa, I'd recommend going in attack. Morgan Rodgers fits that bill perfectly. Reinders has got a definite Kevin De Bruyne about him. I think he's going to rack the assists up. I have no doubt about that. And yeah, Anthony Gordon has just gone from strength to strength. If Isaac is to leave, I expect him to play more of a role, whether it's up front or not. We don't actually know that yet. But he's proven he can deliver, and I think he's the perfect fit for them, for Newcastle. So yeah, I can't knock that choice. There's a lot of creativity in there. You're gonna get goals, if not, you're gonna get assists.
Yeah, I love the midfield player wise. I don't like Reinders. I love him as a footballer. Very, very good footballer. But he's not so defensive as a CDM. He's going to get all the defensive points, and he's not so attacking. He's going to get loads of assists. So, like, obviously, I know you said yourself, City bias in there. You're never going to be that excited over a 5.5 mil player, but I think he's going to be in that middle where he doesn't do much of either, but he's a very good player. Plus, you've got Pep Roulette, which means he might play 50 minutes a game. So I don't love it as a pick overall, I think. Um, yeah, Palmer and Salah need no introduction. Gordon, I think you're right. It could be his time to be an absolute gem in FPL because he's going to have to step up. Put simply, Rodgers, I absolutely love Rodgers as a player. Um, I do think though that might be one where everyone at 7 mil puts him in. He doesn't get a goal or assist for like 2, 3 games, and then everyone goes, nah, sack it off. So I love the player again, but I think it's a little bit potentially a little bit pricey at this stage.
I do think out of my midfielders, Rodgers is like the most likely to go out if I'm changing the team around. But I'm not that convinced with anyone else at the moment. So that's kind of he's in there. I'm fairly happy with him. If I'm starting in game week 1 and I've got him, I'm not that concerned, to be honest. But I do get your point on that. I think the opposite of you in the way you're talking about Reinders is I think he will pop up with some defensive attributes and some sort of assists and some goals. So that's it. I'm not expecting tons and tons. I'm not expecting Palmer numbers, Salah numbers, but you also got to remember he's pretty much half the price or a third of the price for Salah. So that's kind of my thought process. If he was more than 5.5, I probably would stay away. But I also want to play in midfielder, and I think he's shown Pep's shown in pre-season that he's going to play him. Whether he's dropped, like he's not played Rodri in games, so Rangers was the CDM. Then Rodri came back, and that means Rangers pushed up a bit more. So I think he will play a lot. I don't think the 50th minute will be the ones he comes off for, but he could. We have seen with Pep, he will take players off. So that is a concern. I do see your point on that. And then finally onto my attack, I've got Barnes there to be a non-starter, don't really care about. Solanke, and then I've got Gorkarez, or however you want to pronounce it, at the moment. I'm more secure with Solanke than I am with Gorkarez, but 9 million just tipped me onto the edge of going, that's not a bad price for a team that's screaming out for a striker who, if they're going to finish second again, they will still score a lot of goals. So I think this one might be the more contentious, where the ones you disagree with, both of you. But yeah, what do you make of my attack then?
Yeah, Solanke love. I mean, Solanke's in all our teams. Spoiler alert. He's absolutely nailed on. Decent run. He's got to step up. That's the bottom line at this point. Like he's been paid. They paid the money for him. We know his potential. We've seen it at Bournemouth. This has to be his season where he does something, and I think he will under Frank. But Barnes 4.5 mil. Yeah, he's there for that reason. Gyökeres, I'll be honest. Again, I don't like this. I'm very, very conscious of adding new players in who've just signed from a foreign league. I think there's no guarantee. On paper, he's got, we've done podcasts on it. He's got all the goals in the world. I don't think he goes into Arsenal on day one with a tough opening 5, 6 games and he just hits the ground running. Um, Arsenal fans will hope he does, but for 9 million, you're asking a lot. you're asking for consistency and you're asking for guarantees, which is too early to say he gives that. So I'd steer clear of him at this moment.
Reese, what's your thoughts? Obviously, an Arsenal striker, fine,
Yeah,
signed.
yeah. I mean, I'll start with Ashley Barnes because I think he'll be a very big part for Burnley. I know he's a Burnley hero, but I think he's there to add a bit of depth. However, if you want a guy who's going to come on and give you 100%, it's going to be Ashley Barnes. Solanke, if he stays fit, I think he's going to be a real powerhouse this season. Um, a phenomenal player. He might have only scored, what was it? I think it was 9 goals last season. Um, but that doesn't mean he's had a bad season. I think, well, 16 and 45 was the total, which I think is quite good for a breakout season. Thomas Frank is a very good at set pieces. If you saw at Brentford, I think only 5 more teams scored more goals from set pieces. So, so from my perspective, he's going to be a bigger player, 6'2". He's going to head those balls in, and so I expect that. Now onto the topic of Gyökeres. I'm not overly sold on Gyökeres. I think he's a good player. I'm not overly sold. Arsenal's first 2 away games are away to Manchester United and then Liverpool. I don't see Arsenal scoring goals in those 2 games. He should score against Leeds at home in the second game, but I do not see him scoring goals in those 2 games. I just don't see it. And yes, that means it's early days, but I just don't think Arsenal play away or have a mentality that gets them the results in those 2 games. So I think 9 million is value. I just don't think Gyökeres is going to deliver like people probably think he is.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that yeah, it's more the value. You're
Mm.
getting, the team that's come second in the league 3 years in a row. So Arsenal are a top side, and he's not coming in at 9 million, where you've got, well, I've said about the transfer already, but Isak at 10.5 for Newcastle, where they're not guaranteed top four, finished fifth last season. It's and they'll have Champions League. If now Isak going to Liverpool would change things and may tear up sort of my attack. But yeah, I think at 9 million, I just think he's at a sweet, just a nice number. I think if he was 10 million, I wouldn't consider him at all. But 9 million just puts into my sort of thought process. And
The only final thing I know we've got to move on. The only thing I'd say is a bit like Pep. Arteta can be a bit weird. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Gyökeres just didn't start the first game because Arteta's trying to be a bit edgy. So I think
I,
that is a small factor as well.
if they weren't playing United and they played, I don't know, a Burnley, a Sunderland, someone like that, maybe I'd agree. But I think Arteta can't go into the season, go away to United, not start your striker, and possibly drop points. I think that would cause ruptions at Arsenal. Really, you can't. I don't think you can be risking that because he's not like he's not signed with time for pre-season. So I think he will start. I'm quite certain of that. But there is obviously the doubt of is he going to perform in the Premier League. Right, let's move on to Jordan's team, and I'll let you take it away.
Cool. So goalkeepers, I'm staying low with the boy Sanchez for now. Again, pretty cheap price for the number one keeper of a top club, who's probably you put in the top four, top five. Plus we've got a nice run of fixtures, so I think at the moment he is the number one based on how he was at the Club World Cup at the end of the season. We are linked with potentially Donnarumma, weak links. So again, if we sign a keeper, obviously that's going to get scrapped. But I think at 5 mil, he's good value, I'd say. Petrovic, again, staying loyal to the Chelsea boys, just signed for Bournemouth. Obviously, a horrible first fixture, but again, for a 4.5, I know he's going to be the number one guy, and I know he's a good goalkeeper. So if there is ever, it is expensive for goalkeepers. I think that's the only kind of concern that I'd put at the moment. But I think you've got 2 good goalkeepers there who are going to be number ones at the moment with relative certainty. So I feel comfortable-ish with those. Onto the defence, I've gone premium in the defence. I think it's important to have attacking defenders, but also with the new rules, there is additional bonuses for good defenders. Gabriel, we've already touched on. Kukurea, for me, was the first name on the team sheet, and he is the one that will not leave my team unless he gets injured. He has been absolutely unbelievable for the last year and a half, 2 years. he has been arguably the best left back in the world. But the main point as to why he's in my team, he has been so attacking over the last season. He was getting, he was like the most goals he scored for us in 2025. He bombs down the wings, he gets defensive points, and we've got a nice run of fixtures. So people watching, if you've not got him in your team, I'd sort it out personally. Um, and eight Nori, uh, again, I love him as a player. He's very attacking, and we know Gvardiol is probably going to go to centre back, and he's going to be the main starting left back. He will be getting a lot of points. He did it at Wolves, and he's going to do it more at Man City when he's allowed to roam free. So 6 mil is a little bit spenny, but if he doesn't do anything the first 3 weeks, he'll be out my team. So at the minute, I love it, but time will tell. And then the other boys, again, cheap defenders, both starters, both good players. Livermento a lot more attacking. Gurhey, we still don't know. If he ends up at Liverpool, it's going to be an absolute steal at 4.5 mil. But even at Palace, we know he's the main man, so we know he's playing every week. So at the moment, I'm fairly happy with my defence. But you boys tell me why I shouldn't be.
Well, you've spent a lot of money on this, like a lot of money on this defence. I personally don't love the Petrovic one because you've spent five on Sanchez. I think you've just sort of probably wasted 0.5 mil. I put a 4.0 goalie who's not going to play because Sanchez is going to play every week, really, unless you could do sign a keeper. That's like what you kind of said as a Chelsea fan, and I agree. I think he is your keeper. There's no point having a goalie on the bench unless you're going to play your bench boost. For me, I disagree with Cucurella and Ait Nori. I'll start with Ait Nori just from the City point of view. Yes, he is going to probably be our first choice left back, but Pep Roulette is a thing. And that is the biggest concern for someone who's 6 million. Because let's be honest, Gvardiol can go and play left back. Ake, I'm hoping he's now going to be fit. He can also play left back. So we actually have options there. That's the concern. When you're spending 6 million on someone, you want them to be starting every sort of week, which Gabriel and Cucurella will be. But Ait Nori might not. Cucurella, what I don't love about him is I think for the 6 millions is the only sticking point. I think he's been superb for Chelsea and actually will get decent FPL points. But at 6 million, if you look what sort of Gabriel got more points than Cucurella, I believe, and played a lot less games. Van Dijk will, I think, outscore Cucurella overall in the season at the same price point. The person who was sort of top last year, like we said, it may switch positions, so probably won't get as many points. Gvardiol, he's 6 million. That's the people you've got to compare to. For FPL, I just don't know. But at the start of the season, if you think in right, these run of fixtures are very good, start of the season, then possibly get him out, I think that would work quite well. Sort of short-term tactic, I think. A long-term hold, I think, because of his price point, is too much. But the others I quite like. Gabriel was in my team, obviously. Gay, 4.5. If he's at Liverpool, he's going to be in everyone's team. Livramento. Newcastle are a very good defensive side, so I don't mind that, and he's probably one of the more attacking players there. So yeah, I just think you've spent a lot. Is my main concern for you on that.
Um, I think you've had to spend a lot. I think with the way the new points work now, it makes sense to go big on defense, especially with how tactical the game is these days. But I think yeah, the out Nuri one's interesting because I look at Gvardiol, unless he's going to play more centre back, Gvardiol's more of a match winner in my opinion. And if you look at his record last season, he really racked up the points, didn't he? So he might have even been the top scoring defender even in the league in terms of points.
Yeah,
So
he was. He was.
him and Virgil van Dijk. So to me, I would probably go for him. Because I think he's going to be less victim to Pep Roulette. But no, I agree. I think Cucurella's been the best left back in the Europe at very least. And he's going to be solid. He's going to be a solid points earner, Mark Gee makes perfect sense. I think Palace are still going to be that sort of team of you don't know what you're going to get from them. They're either going to win 2-0 or lose 4-0. They're one of them sorts of sides. Livramento is always consistent. And yeah, I've already touched upon Gabriel, so
Just very
I
quickly
get the
on.
logic.
Sorry, go on, mate.
No, I just said I get the logic.
Just on Gvardiol, like he was unreal last season, but he was only unreal because he's playing left back and he's bombing down the wing every 5 minutes. He's not going to be doing that centre back, so I don't. He's more likely to start potentially than Nori, but I don't agree that he's good value at 6 mil anymore, personally.
I don't know. Pep did have John Stones playing further up the pitch, and he had um, what's his name? Cancelo, didn't he, playing in all sorts of positions on the pitch, even though he was a right back. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think
I,
he'll be centre back
I
personally,
think that's
but
the problem. You just don't know. So that's what I've not got
yeah,
either. In
yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. We'll jump onto the midfield. So the obvious ones, Palmer, Salah, need no introductions. Great value as always. Um, then these ones are a bit mixed, so they're kind of in the middle. Uh, Nonto at Leeds, great player, will start most games, very attacking. I think he will get goals and assists. Like again, if you compare him, I know maybe it's a bad comparison, but like if you're comparing him with Reinders, like obviously at a worse club, but Nonto is like a proper attacking player. So I do think he'll contribute to a lot of Leeds' attack. And obviously Solomon's gone back to Spurs, etc., etc. So I think he's pretty nailed on. Hudson-Odoi, again, great season last season. Elanga's gone at Forest. He's going to have to step up. He's going to be the main winger. 6 mil for a pretty much guaranteed starter. Again, I don't mind that. And then Sharda is the one that will probably raise a few eyebrows. But 7 mil, he'll raise eyebrows because he's 7 mil. But you've got to look at this side. And Burmo, obviously gone. Wissa potentially on his way out. Sharda at the end of last season, people forget this, was very, very good in the attacking sense. Like there was games he got a hat trick. He was like the unsung hero for their attack. And with those two players potentially going, he is going to be one pretty much nailed on to start, but two, he is going to have to be a big contributor to their attack. And if he's not, they might go down. Like so, I actually think no one will pick Sharda at 7 mil, but I think this will be a gem that gets me points above other people. That's my take.
so just looking, Shard's a 2.3% owned player. Whoops, I've just got rid of him. But yeah, 2.3% owned. Um, so I understand the logic what you've got there. Um, but this is where I think your heavy defence costing is stopping your midfield kind of thing. I think this is where you see the money coming down. Whereas I had sort of 7.5, a 7, then the 5.5 where you got a 7 or a 6, for example. I don't mind the picks. These are definitely differentials. So these definitely could, be the key that puts you above other people. And sort of Shard's the one you're, I think, mainly banking on because he will be a big differential. Sort of 2.3% owned is so low, and if you're early on him, that's brilliant. But Brentford, it's could they struggle is the sort of key on that. Hudson-Odoi, yeah, with Elanga going, probably looks a good one to pick up there. I stay away from promoted sides unless they're sort of like 4.5. But yeah, so I quite like it for the price you points, but it's not flattering. It's sort of like you've seen the sort of budget come in terms of them.
Yeah, I think the midfield is a very nice eclectic mix. There's your word for the day there. Obviously, like we said, we don't need to go into detail about Palmer and Salah. Hudson-Odoi with the Elanga leaving, expect it to be a big season for him. I think a lot of us could argue that there's been a lot of untapped potential with him, so it's probably his chance to really show who he is. On the topic of Notto, first of all, again, he's another one of those players who's a youngster who hasn't quite lived up to his potential, but people forget he's still only 21 years old. And I think he was great for Leeds last season. I know how well thought of he is at Ellen Road. And he might have only scored 9 in 46, but he scored important goals. If they needed that goal to get the winner, he was there. So I think he's going to be important for Daniel Farke's side. As we know how Leeds like to play, I expect Leeds to concede a lot of goals, but I expect them to be scoring goals too. So I think Wilfred Gnonto is a very good money offer. And if they're playing the first game of the season at home at Ellen Road, we know how good the atmosphere is. We know they're going to get into Everton's face. So I think he's a good bet, but especially early on. And Shade, I also agree with. As you saw towards the end of his season, I think it was in the last 5 games or so, he managed to bag himself 5 goals in those last few games, which I thought was very, very impressive from him. So with Wisa likely to go and with him to and when we're already gone, he is expected to step up. He needs to get more assists in the bank, but I think he's been fantastic. And yeah, I agree. I think he is going to be a big player for him. This is why I'm not sweating over Brentford to go down or anything. So I think you've got those untapped players in there, which I think are always worth getting in early because I think you get to see what they can do by now early on, get those before the going gets tough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think as well it is important, particularly when it's early, to not just go with the crowd. I think everyone gets caught in these days of just following the guys on Twitter and FPL, and everyone ends up the same team. They as good as they are, they don't necessarily watch players week in, week out. So I would just add that in there as well. But we'll see. Um, let's move on to the strikers. So Solanke, again, I've already touched on him. I think we've all got him, so we're all pretty confident. Um, my man Beto, again, you boys probably heard enough of me going on about how good he is, and no one rates him, but I do. They have signed a striker, Everton. So my only question mark at the minute is will he start? But if he does start, I watched a lot of his minutes last season. He is a threat. He's he puts himself about. He's very, very good at winning headers from crosses as well, which a lot of strikers struggle with these days. And he is a presence. So if he starts, I'm telling you now, he will be a great pick at 5.5. The only issue is he may not start, but we'll see. And then Welbeck, again, Ferguson obviously leaving Brighton. Welbeck, as old as he is, he's Mr. Consistent, and he's there for Brighton. He started most games last season. He was a threat, and again, age does not seem to impact him. So I think again, assuming he starts, you can maybe argue there's a small doubt on whether he starts, but I think he will. And Brighton, we know how good they can be. So I do think this could be quite a good value strike partnership potentially.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think.
yeah, go on,
Oh, go
Chris.
on. Oh, go on.
I think with Welbeck, because Pedro's gone, Ferguson gone, it probably is him starting. So 6.5, you're not breaking the bank. It's sort of one you can take a bit of a punt on. If it doesn't work, it's not too bad. It's not the end of the world. But the problem I think you've got here is it's kind of like you're taking two punts on Welbeck and Beto. Whereas sort of if you're taking one punt, I think it's sort of a bit less risky. I just want to have a look at how many goals he scored last season. So he got
Okay.
he got 10 goals, started 24 games. So if he starts more, it'll probably get more close to the sort of 15. So actually not too bad. And Brighton are a good side, so I wouldn't be. I'm not concerned about that in a way. I don't know. Cause I had Welbeck in sort of like thinking about him at points, and it's just like I don't know if it's just because he's not. Maybe it's just because he's a bit unsexy. Is the real is sort of why I just went no. I'm going to stay away from him because 6.5 is still a good price point. Like I said, you're not breaking the bank to have him in here. But yeah, what my problem is with I think with yours is let's say Beto doesn't start, Welbeck is not hitting form, it's hard to move these players on to someone else. That's it's sort of like how do you fluctuate around it? Whereas sort of like with me having Gyökeres is at 9 million, so I can actually buy any other striker except Haaland and Isak. I think it is maybe one other I can't remember now, but I've got that fluctuation sort of if he underperforms, I can go down to say a João Pedro. but you'll need to find 1 million somewhere to go from Welbeck to Pedro, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You'd have to
that
wait a few weeks to build up transfers.
exactly, yeah. So you're going. Everyone else can do their transfer straight away. You're waiting a week. You're playing catch up. You might miss out on a price rise, for example, something like that. So that could be the concern of it. Beto, I know you do love him, so I'm not surprised he's in there. I just don't think Everton score enough. But once again, I know sort of it's contradictory, but like 5.5, it's not bad to have a risk on a 5.5 player because, at the moment, it's like I'm kind of taking a risk with a 9.0 player. The benefit is I can switch him out quite easily. I don't know who else you'd get for 5.5 if he doesn't work out.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. I'm looking at Everton's first five, well, four, and I think he's capable if he starts getting goals in that. After that, it gets a little bit ugly, but
So yeah,
I don't
Leeds
know.
away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, and then Villa at home.
Yeah,
And then it's at Anfield where they don't have a
I
good
guess the good
record.
thing is all of these players in my team are pretty much nailed on to start. So I do have flexibility if people don't start or a bad form. They can get benched. Maybe that's the only positive on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think having playing players is always a positive because one person will get dropped 1 week. Like we're saying with Eight Nori, if he's dropped, someone else can come into your team. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I call sort of Welbeck and Beto these sort of slow burner points. There'll be steady eddies throughout the season. I mean, I love Danny Welbeck. He's like a fine wine. I mean, he's 34 now, going on 35. And how many teams get rid of their two young strikers, and still keep Danny Welbeck? He's he's got over his injury problems by the look of it, and he's become an even better player. And I expect him to still deliver at the highest level now. However, you've also got to take into consideration, yes, he is 34 years old. Will he be victim to rotation a little bit more? He might just be. Um, but we can't knock his record. Like I said, he proves everybody wrong, so why not keep him in there? Beto, again, David Moyes has never had a 15, 20 goal a season striker, has he? But he likes a certain type of striker. Mikel Antonio, Yakubu, and Beto is no exception. He falls into that category. So he's going to play and he's going to give you a game. Well, I know they've made their new signing as well, but I expect Beto to get you the goal in a 1-0 win. Will he get you a hat trick consistently? Probably not. But he's a one, like I say, he's a steady earner. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The way the game's so tactical now, you're going to compensate for it a lot more in your midfield. So I don't see that being the worst thing in the world.
All right, and let's go finally on to Reese's side. Reese, take it away.
Yeah, so this year's winning FPL side in the world is quite straightforward. Sanchez with Jorgensen as backup. Is Jorgensen going to be confirmed as the backup? I don't know, but if you don't play at the moment, Jorgensen will, so it's an easy like for like swap. It looks like they've settled on Sanchez. I don't blame them. He got better towards the end of the season and his pre-season full of confidence. So why ruin that momentum now? In terms of the back line, Alex Moreno, no disrespect to him, he's just filler at this moment in time, um, just because of budget. Now, Tarkowski have given the same reason. Udogie and Van de Ven. Thomas Frank is in charge. I expect Udogie to be more attacking. I expect him to be a better player. I expect him to be a threat by delivering more assists and more consistency. Van de Ven, yes, I know he's been more times in the hospital than he has on the pitch. I think he should remain his fitness. I don't think Thomas Frank's style of play is going to hurt him like that, like Ange's did. And again, Brent with his set piece experience from Brentford coming over, I think Van de Ven's going to be a threat. He's a beast of a centre back, so I expect there to be goals. And then on the flip side of that, I've gone with Nathan Collins. I understand people might ask why, but I think he's a very consistent player. And again, Brentford have appointed their set piece coach as their coach. Why aren't they going to try and utilize set pieces? Nathan Collins is about 6'2", 6'3". He should be scoring a lot more goals next season and contributing defensively. And I think for £5 million, I think he's a good signing to have for most people.
I
Yeah.
think. Go on.
Well, I was going to say that I think you got the same problem as what I said with Jordan, is having a 5.0 goalie and then a 4.5 goalie. I think you're spending too much on the goalies, and especially as we certainly know one of them won't play. But I know you're trying to get the backup to the goalie, so I understand the logic behind it on that side of things. I don't think you can have two Spurs defenders. Like Burnley at home, fine, but otherwise, I would not want two Spurs defenders. I know they're
This
not going
isn't,
to be as bad
yeah,
defensively as they
and
was last season, but I just don't think they're going to be very good at the same time. Whereas I'd rather mix it up just to avoid the if Spurs don't keep a clean sheet, you're screwed in that in two of your players. Tarkowski, I like I said. Moreno, like I said, you said 4.0, nothing. Collins, I quite like. I think actually he'll get a lot of defensive contributions. And if, like, the sort of set pieces, what you're on about, does kind of make sense to me. I think he will be key for Brentford defensively, so I don't mind them. It's just, yeah, the double Spurs shouts to me. It's fine for the first game of the season, but otherwise I wouldn't want that at all.
Yeah, I like the individual players of Spurs and the prices on both. So I would consider having one of them because I think they're both really good value. Um, Udogi at 4.5 mil could be phenomenal. Um, if they signed a left back or something, like why is he so cheap? I feel like we're missing something there with him being at 4.5
Spurs
mil.
finished what 17th?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the only reason because there's still Udogi was still a really popular pick last season. So I don't know. I feel like we're missing something there, but yeah, I like both of those players at 4.5 mil. Just I agree. Just you can't have both of them in. Um, Tarkovsky we've discussed. Collins, I kind of agree. Like he could be a little gem that no one's going to pick. And then Moreno, I actually really like Alex Moreno as a player. The problem is, will he ever play? I don't know. But then, does it matter at 4 mil? Maybe not. Um, but yeah, don't mind that.
cool. So in terms of the midfield, then, I'll start with I'll start from where my screen is left to right. I'm going to start with Arias of Wolves. Very impressive in the Club World Cup. He might only be 5'7", but he's got the physical or physicality of what they used to have in Traore back in the day. But he's also got that Pedro Neto about him that I think Wolves miss a lot. And I think the way Pereira plays is going to be key for Arias here. I think he's going to be an outstanding player for them, and I think he's going to be key in a Wolves side that I think are going to surprise a lot of people. Um, Palmer and Salah are pretty straightforward. Cunha is probably an eyebrow raiser for some, but I expect him to do very, very well for Man United, particularly playing up front. I'm confident he's going to score against Arsenal in the first game of the season, and I think he's going to be that kind of player for them. I think United have lacked a match winner for a long time, and I think he's going to be that match winner for them. So I've gone Cunha there. The only one I've realised as soon as I put him in was Alanga, because £7 million is a lot of money. Good player for Forest. However, with the likes of Anthony Gordon at Newcastle and Jacob Murphy, is he going to play as much as I think? I don't know. Um, I would assume so at the price they've paid, and that's why I think Gordon might move more up front. That's why I think is Gordon a better choice because he's probably going to play more of a striking role. But I also like Alanga in general. I think he's a good, consistent player, and I think he's gone from strength to strength. So he could be, again, an option in a Newcastle side who I think can always punch above where they are with the players they've got.
It's Harvey Barnes as well for me. Again, Barnes, great player, really good end to the season. You're right. Maybe that makes Gordon a better pick. Would Gordon play up front if Isak goes? So I actually, weirdly, I think Gordon could then become the better value at 7.5 because I think they've got to find a way really to get Barnes, Elanga, and Gordon in the team because they are three really good players. So I don't hate Elanga, but I don't love it at 7 mil. Um, Cunha, I'd wait on Cunha personally. United don't have a great opening run. We don't know how. We know United is the graveyard of new signings, so I'd be reluctant to chuck him straight in personally. Arias, absolutely love. I think I said to us in the chat, well, I definitely said to my family, he was unbelievable. I was like, he needs to be signed by a Prem team. My only concern was that he was 27, 28. But I'm really glad I saw that Wolves have noticed his performance in the Club World Cup and signed him. I think he could be unreal, and not a lot of people will know about him. So that could be a little gem there at 5.5 mil.
Yeah, on Arias, sort of 5.5 mil, we've all got picked a different one. As you can see, one like I think this is sort of it's a good pick. I think he's sort of like if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. It's not the end of the world. Cunha, I think. Look, you got two United players at 8.0, Embuemo and Cunha. I think Cunha's going to do better than Embuemo this season, especially just sort of overall play and FPL points. So I'd pick him over it, but I agree with Jordan. I would wait till their first sort of like 5, 6 fixtures are done before even considering the United player, unless it's going to be a really cheap one. Alanga, the problem is, to be honest, I think Barnes is more meant to be on the left, which is where Gordon's meant to play. I think Alanga's going to go out on the right where Murphy was playing. So that's where I think Alanga then goes ahead of Murphy, even though I think Murphy was brilliant last season. I had him in my team. So I'm not that concerned. And I think Newcastle are trying to look for a striker. There's rumours they've been talking about Sesko. So I don't see Gordon actually being up front. I just think he's going to be the main man instead. That's kind of why I've picked him. And no, so I think the front three, let's say they sign a striker. So the striker, I think it'd be Alanga on the right, Gordon on the left is kind of how I see it. Doesn't mean none of them can't be rotated, but that's Newcastle getting strength and depth. So I don't think it's a bad gamble having Alanga there. My only question is if you want Gordon, you do have money in the bank. For everyone, Reese has 2 million currently sat in the bank. So you can get Gordon if you want to, or even reduce your second goalie down to a 4.0, and then you can get Gordon that way. So I think that would work out. But yeah, I think these are different picks, especially to us, apart from Palmer and Salah, of course. And I don't think they're terrible picks. I think Cunha, I would just wait, is my only concern.
No, that's fair enough. It is an important thing. I think my thinking with Cunha is he's already a Premier League experience. He knows, where the back of the net is. The issue is as well is he is susceptible to a booking or two, which if things aren't going the way for United, is he going to be that guy who's going to, of course, calls himself, a sending off? But remains to be seen at this moment in time. Up front, so as we know, we've gone for Solanke, and now I've gone for two un untapped picks, and I'll give you my reasons why. First of all, I'm going to start with Strand Larsen at Wolves. 14 goals in all competitions last season in his debut campaign for Wolves. I think he's a very, very good player. I think he is a very talented player who his potential, yes, he can be frustrating, but again, I expect Pereira to really get the best out of him. And with Arias playing on the wing, I expect, he's a tall striker, Strand Larsen. I expect there to be assists and goals from both parties. That was my thinking there. I think, like I said, I think Wolves are going to be very, very good, and I think he's going to be pivotal to that. With Cunha now at Wolves, there's not that reliance. There's not that, to give the ball to Cunha. They can give it to Larsen instead. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. And of course, I've gone for Mienda at Sunderland. Now, I expect Sunderland to concede goals. I expect Sunderland to maybe not have the mentality as of Burnley or of Leeds. But Mienda to me is quite a smart pick because Sunderland don't get much wrong in their recruitment. He may have only got about 8 goals last season, but he gets important goals. There's a lot of times where he's getting the one goal that gets the win, whether it's a 2-1 win or 1-0 win. He's getting them, in my opinion. So he can be that difference maker for Sunderland in the Premier League when they're struggling. If they need to get those goals, particularly against teams around them, he's going to be that guy. However, I know I've not picked him, but this is where another player might come in who I think might be of interest to both you two, is Wilson Isidore of Sunderland as well, because these two complement each other well, often assisting or scoring. Put him on the wing, you've probably got a nice little connection there between the two. Like I said, is it probably going to work away at Goodison Park? Maybe not. Maybe especially early in the season, I don't know. But West Ham will be hard to break down. We know that. But when they're flowing, I think they'll do just fine. So yeah, I've gone for Mayenda because I think he'll surprise a few people, and I think he'll get those important goals, which I know important goals don't always mean huge amount of points for myself. But to me, I think if I've got that one, I think a lot of us have that one striker where we're never sure. So for me, I'm going to have again what I call a little steady Eddie.
Yeah, I think with your logic, you said it at the end there, but it doesn't matter if they get the big goals in the games. I'd rather a striker who gets 10 ugly goals than two important goals for FPL at least, anyway. But yeah, I think Minder again, absolutely 100% a differential. He could hit the ground running, and then people might start going to him. But I don't know if Sunderland are going to be strong enough. And I think with Isildur as well, you're spreading the risk of their goals. Like they're not going to get that many goals as it is, and then you're basically pretty much halving the goals even further. Like if he was the only main man, then it'd make a bit more sense. So I think that could be a slight issue with him. And Solanke we've all picked, so yeah, sounds good. Strand Larson, I do like, I must say. Again, he was really good last season. I don't love two Wolves attackers though. I know you said you think they're going to do well, but I think that's a little bit too risky of a team who, at the start of last season, were knocking on the door of relegation, and they've not got
Completely
the
different team now.
greatest run.
Completely different team now. I think their first few games are winnable. And I think you're going to find that the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea are going to have more nil-nils than Wolves will. Do you know what I mean? So
That's bold.
Strand Larson is someone that was in my actual first draft. I think with Cunha going, and I watched him when City played Wolves. He scored, and he is a threat. He's a big threat, tall as well, like a big threat in sort of both ways, as height as well as sort of just scoring goals. So I think he'll flourish in this season. So I would be happy with that pick, and he's someone who I wouldn't be surprised if he's in my first sort of overall ending draft. My ender, I just you can't have a striker who's not the only striker at a team that's probably going to come 20th. He's just not going to score enough goals to warrant being in your team. If he was 4.5, then I think that's fine. Whereas he'll sit on your bench for most of the season, might come on because one of your players got rotated or two of your players got rotated. But otherwise, I would avoid a Sunderland player pretty much altogether. I just don't see it. They haven't got a goal scorer that's sort of like as good as say like Pookie was for Norwich a while ago. That's what you need if you're going to pick someone who's going to be in a relegation sort of team. But Sunderland don't have that in my ender. He's not. It's not if he's a bad player, but I just think Sunderland aren't strong enough. So
it's
I would avoid. And you've got the
it's a
money in
fair
the bank to get, say, a João Pedro.
it's a fair point. I will argue with Sunderland is they're going to surprise people. I think they've got the mentality? No, not really. But their recruitment since the takeover has been pretty much perfect. They haven't invested in a striker, I don't think, so far this window, which shows probably their faith in Isadora Mayenda to deliver for them. Their midfield is very stacked as well, so I expect there to be more chances and more opportunities for goals there. So I think value for money, he might just be it. But again, yeah, I suppose you'll find out in the first few games. I don't think West Ham is a real good litmus test for Sunderland.
Yeah, I think to Jamie's point, you've got two more in the bank, so you can upgrade him to João Pedro, who's probably going to be a starter at one of the top sides. So I think that makes more sense than gambling personally, but we shall see. But that is all we have time for this episode. If you're lazy and you've just skipped to the end, Cole Palmer, Mohamed Salah, and Solanke are in all our teams. So they're the ones you want in your team. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.